Many centuries ago, there existed three great powers. One young man found upon such a peace. His name was Jacob. This is his story. This is the Lumberjack Hour. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Now, it's the moment you have all been waiting for. The first part of my historical review series, The Last of the Mohicans. It is one of my all-time favorites, and I love this movie to death. It came out in 1992, and it stars Daniel Day-Lewis, Wes Studi, and Russell Means. It's based off of the book by James Fenimore Cooper, Last of the Mohicans, part of the Leatherstocking Tales. First of all, I would like to clear up a big misconception about this movie that just pisses me off. Daniel Day-Lewis is not the last of the Mohicans, honestly. It's even said in the movie that he isn't even a Mohican, let alone the last of them. It's the same thing with The Last Samurai. It just irritates me, because they make it obvious in the movie that it's the older guy. It's the Indian Chingachgook that's the last of the Mohicans. He even freaking says so. Which is ironic, because for whatever reason it is said in the book that it is the younger Indian Uncas who is declared the last of the Mohicans, even though he's dead. I don't know. So we have this weird dichotomy of it being Uncas in the book, Chingachgook in the movie, and Hawkeye in the popular imagination. Who is the fucking last of the Mohicans? Wait a second. What if I am the last of the Mohicans? Nah. The story is fairly simple enough. Hawkeye and his two Native American friends, Chingachgook and his son Uncas, rescue these two young sisters, Alice and Cora, from an ambush by the bad Indians, led by Magua. You know these Indians are bad because they work with, you guessed it, the French. Our heroes take the girls to their father, who is at Fort William Henry. After their father surrenders to the French, they're all brutally massacred, except for our heroes and the girls, who escapes, and they hide momentarily under a waterfall. Well, that is until the girls are kidnapped by the bad Indians, only to be saved by the heroes after Uncas is killed, as well as Alice. Then Chingachgook, who's only given 5 minutes of screen time the entire movie, kills Magua. Instead of the main character, Hawkeye, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, talks about how eventually there will be no frontier and how he is the last of the Mohicans. As Hawkeye and Cora are just cuddling. Everyone, no joke, is painted red by the setting sun and the horizons. Literally, you can watch it, everyone is just red. Beneath the main story, there was also a subplot about how the frontiersmen are in conflict with their British superiors, making it overly obvious that in 20 years the frontiersmen will have a revolution against them, thus making America. Now, I know I mentioned this before, but what the hell? Why does the one guy who only gets 5 minutes of screen time get to kill the bad guy and not the main character? Seriously, the only thing Chingachgook says in the movie is a Mohican prayer and, "What have they done with my white son?" when Hawkeye is taken away. Okay, he doesn't sound Jewish, but whatever. Yet, apparently this guy is important enough to the movie that he gets the honor of killing Magua. Just that right there, part of the story, just... The biggest problem was that towards the end of the movie, there are some time issues, both in the context of the movie and how it's run. After the famous waterfall scene, the good guys leave to get some more powder, which presumably would take a while, considering they're in the middle of the wilderness. Yet, they're able to catch up perfectly with the bad guys as they kidnap the English characters. Okay, unless there was a trading post right there, in the forest by the river, it would have taken a week for them to get there and back. By then, all the Brits would have been dead. Speaking of which, when they all got to the waterfall, there were 3 other guys with them. What happened to them? Honestly, they're just up and disappear. What happened? Okay, the ending is really rushed. What should have taken a good 20 minutes is only given half that time, so it's pretty much just things happening without much explanation. To Celtic music. Where did Hawkeye go and the others go? How did they get back so fast? How are they able to catch up with the others so quickly? These are the kinds of things that make watching the movie for the first time difficult. The movie takes its sweet time with almost every other aspect of the movie, except for the obvious forced romances between the Indians and the Brits. But once it hits the last 10 minutes, they have to rush everything. It confused me when I first saw it. I was like, what the hell? It's just boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm the last of the Mohicans. The end. According to IMDb, the reason for a lot of the film getting cut and this sort of rushed nature is because the original cut was just too long. So the company made the director, Michael Mann, trim a lot of stuff out. This explains a lot of the lack of explanation, the lack of character development. So I can give this film a lot of slack in this regard, since what we were seeing is not the version that director wanted us to see. Okay, so the characters in this movie are not as well used as I think they should have been. Which is understandable considering that a lot of the movie was cut. It was originally like 3 hours long. But still, you know, the characters just seem like static stock characters rather than real people. I'm not saying that the characters didn't do their part or that the actors weren't good. It was just I felt they needed a little bit more depth and characterization than just being the badass Indian, or the wise Indian, or the whiny English girls, or the douche nozzle. Which, by the way, make the worst Jersey Shore nicknames ever. Okay, let's start with the main character. Nathaniel Poe, a.k.a. Hawkeye. He's the white settler raised as an Indian alongside Uncas as Chingachgook's son. He's played by Daniel Day-Lewis. He is awesome. Enough said. He's the resident badass of the movie. Now, I know I could go into detail about how Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor today, but that would be redundant because it's a proven fact. Back to the movie. Hawkeye is a great character story-wise because he acts as a middle ground between the Indians and the English characters. He's very pro-independence, giving one of the best lines of the movie, which I'm surprised has not become a slogan for the Tea Party. "We won't tell you what you ought to do with your scalps. You best not be telling us what to do with ours." Just, this guy has the best lines in the movie. When asked how he goes west when there's a war going on, he says, "Well, it's really simple. We face north and then, real sudden like, we turn left." I love this. It's just, he has the best dialogue. Okay, and then there's his father, Chingachgook, played by Russell Means. He's the wise Indian. He's sort of that stereotype or cliche, yet he isn't seen much. We just kind of have to take it at face value. Oh yeah, he's the wise Indian guy. He's the last of the Mohicans. He knows what he's talking about. I've already got on my rant about Chingachgook, so I'll leave it, you know. Then there's Uncas, who's Chingachgook's biological son, but Hawkeye's like son through brother through adoption. He's supposed to be kind of like a badass, but quiet, but he's never heard. Then there's Magua, the bad Indian guy. But yet he's not a bad guy. Like, they try to make it understandable. There's only like one scene where they give you an explanation. Oh yeah, he was beat or something, or he was arrested. His wife left him or something. And yet the only like real touch of humanity they give him is the final scene when Alice is about to jump off the ledge. He's like, he just holds out his hand. Really? Is this the point where you have to quit being a dick? And then there's the two English daughters. Okay, honestly, they're kind of useless characters except as a plot device. I mean, there's a forced romance, and it's just like, really, you could have done this a lot better. Well, the weird thing is the two English daughters of a Scotsman, who I'm going to get to later. The oldest one, Cora, the dark-haired one, is supposed to be like a quarter black or half black. So you have this weird sort of connection, and it's just like, it's like, okay, so you're the half black daughter who's English of a Scotsman. There's just a lot going on with that character that's interesting. And then there's the English officer, Duncan Haywood, who's a douchebag. I don't like him. He's just a completely dickish character. When he dies at the end, you're like cheering, yeah, yeah. Burn faster, fucker. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just weird like that. And then there's Colonel Monroe. Oh, this guy has such a great Scottish accent. Really, it's great. When the fort is being sieged, I just want to say, "The walls can't hold any longer, Captain." Like, "We can't take it anymore, Captain." I would love for him to say like a Star Trek thing, just in this great Scottish accent. Oh my god, it was hilarious just watching it. Oh my god. I wish he'd been played by James Doohan. That would have been great, and then just yelling out these things. There wasn't really a focus on any of the characters besides Hawkeye, so they weren't really given as much depth as they should have been. And you can tell that, apart from Daniel Day-Lewis, none of the actors really did anything major. Like, one of the girls played a lesbian drug addict. Wes Studi does a couple of stuff. Like, he was in Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Russell Means tried to secede from the Union. Nothing real spectacular. And then there's the atmosphere. Honestly, if I had to give this movie a specific thing, it's not really plot-driven or character-driven, because those aren't really developed as well as they should be. This is an atmosphere movie. You go into this movie for the atmosphere. The music is beautiful. You get a sense, just from these huge, epic landscapes, of the freedom that these frontiersmen like Hawkeye would have felt, just running through the woods. You could just go on there for hours and hours and days and weeks and just feel completely free. You could even see it in the clothes. Like the frontiersmen and the Indians, they all wore these very loose clothes, just showing how free they are. But the Brits, they all wore these, really restricted jackets and coats, and it just, you could sense it. It was a visual allegory. And another thing is that this movie was very respectful towards the Indians. Like, even the ones that you're not supposed to like the Huron. For historical accuracy, let's start with the first one. The last of the Mohicans. The Mohicans still exist. They live in Wisconsin, of all places. And the movie actually historically is very accurate. Like, when you look at it, you know that you're in the 1750s. It was all the facts were really good. It was in the middle of the French and Indian War. The only thing was that Monroe actually lived after the massacre at Fort William Henry. We don't know if he had any daughters, actually, so that was strict literary invention. But he did, in fact, live. And then my final comment would be that it's a beautiful movie. It is a little long and boring for the first time you watch it. But it's a good representation of that period. It's, like I said, really accurate. That's why the historical accuracy segment was very small. And it shows kind of a different viewpoint, because you really get much more in tune with the world of the Native Americans. Because usually they show it more from the frontiersmen and the English angle. Then I personally think that there should have been more made, because it's a whole series. That they should have begun with the Deerslayer and then do the entire series. I would have loved that, just because I love Daniel Day-Lewis and I want to see more Daniel Day-Lewis. But he's getting a little old for them to go back and do the Deerslayer and all the other ones. But overall, it's a great movie. I recommend it. This has been my Last of the Mohicans review. Like, comment, leave a response. Tell this to your friends. We now officially have a Facebook group up, so look up Jacob's Happy Lumberjack Hour on Facebook. Tell me what you think there. And remember, this show is brought by a viewer like you.